Alright, I'm gonna make a few more short videos before going down the road. We got a festival going on this week, and it's literally down the street from my house. I can walk there. Oh, check out the vendor tents without grandkids. Just saying. They tend to want to touch everything, and I like looking at glass and pottery. I want to be able to sit back and look at some artwork without having to answer 1,000 questions about everything. So I'm going with races again because there's a few more. These are short, and when I start doing classes, I'm gonna dive in a little bit more, and maybe those might be 20 minutes long. I try not to make it too long. I like making them long enough people get my general idea how I do things, and maybe spark an idea for their games, and then just move on. All the magic is made during play, guys. All the magic's made during play. Cyclopsman. I originally was not going to allow these or gnomes in my games because they seemed unneeded. These guys are only slightly larger than humans. They start at 6'2". And D6 modifier. And I'm not mentioning that you could roll for female height and weight as well if you play a female character. Y'all can read. I mean, they're a little shorter. He's a die 4 versus a D6. That's really what comes out. Starting height is a little shorter, and you roll a D4. That's it. How hard? The minimums of 13 are steep for a race. 13 strength and a 14 con. So not everybody's going to be playing this class. The ability score modifiers, 3 minuses for 1 plus. Int, Wisdom, Charisma are -1, and a Constitution +1. So they're beefier, they're on average taller, and they got 1 eyeball. If you've seen the movie Crawl, you know the inspiration. I just don't know if it fills in a niche that's needed. Although we don't have half ogres, we don't have what do they call those, Goliaths. For some reason, everybody wants to play a giant class opponent, a giant class sometimes. And I never saw need of it, but I did incorporate half ogres in my AD&D campaign for ages. They were just a little bit rare, right? But they only be 2 classes, Fighter and Paladin. They can't multi-class those classes. And it says they're rare. And with that, rarity is a lot to do with the ability score requirements, and in this world, they came from somewhere else. They can't draw nutrients from cooked meat. Alcohol is poison. Now, these are really hard role-playing things for some adventurer types. And for people who are just gaming for the mechanical aspect, they don't matter in the world. I just don't drink. Simple. I eat my meat raw. Who cares? You know. So they are big old tanks if you want something larger. Now, they, in their roleplay thing, and he does a thing where he puts some basic roleplay notes in there. Now, I think these can be customized for each campaign, but he gives a slur that is often used to describe him as slags. They identify with halflings because halflings are hit upon for their height, whereas they are hit upon for the lack of height, whereas Cyclopsmen are inversely chided for their great height. In play, I just picture them as big dwarves. So you got someone who's play a dwarf who can use a 2-handed weapon, that's basically where they're going to line up towards. And they get to be a paladin. You know, big one-eye paladin. I don't know how I'd feel about it. I'm kind of iffy since I'm playing it close to raw this first time around. I don't care. They only live to be 50 years old, roundabout. They have dark vision with their one big eye. That one big eye also means a -2 to range weapons, which suits well if you're going to play a 2-handed cleaver, right? Who cares? I'll just run up on it and start swinging. 40 feet, some dark vision, basic demi-human stuff. They have a higher chance to detect secret doors. Superstitious, that's a role-playing aspect. But they're not barbarians. I could see a highly superstitious barbarian, but no, they can't be barbarians. So therefore, they're fighters and paladins. A superstitious paladin. I could see that. Be fun to play around with. They get a +1 save versus environmental extreme. So +1 versus heat and cold. It's a very minor thing. But that extra +1 saving throw versus the most damaging spells that a wizard could throw at you, handy. It's not game breaking. Languages start with their own language, and if they have a higher int, they can pick up other languages, up to their modifier. But if you got one who's done an int modifier, then you only speak their language. Similar to the dwarf, only speaking their language, which is a role play issue. Then hopefully you have another player character who speaks their language, and then you have a translator. You see parallels to Steinbeck here. Big guy doesn't talk well, so George does all his speaking. Possible. I could see a parody on Master Blaster, a halfling and a Cyclopsman ally. You can play that up a little bit. But man, it's a role playing thing. About the -2 to ranged attacks, and being immune to poison gas completely, and turning all alcohol into poison, and clotted cream becomes alcohol for them. They get intoxicated on soured milk. We've seen these movies. We know these are all movie inspirations. And it's neat to see someone publish something that is obviously inspired from their film viewing that they incorporated into their game, because we've all done it. Except you pour it in a game, and I would think something like that's kind of cheesy. A Cyclopsman wouldn't necessarily be my first choice, but I do have players who like playing a fatalist side view, and they would love playing a Cyclopsman. Eventually, I think they will when I switch that. That's the guys in the dwarf game. So when that slides over, he'll play dwarves all the time. But if he sees a Cyclopsman, I guarantee a Cyclopsman paladin will be on that venue for my buddy Joe in a heartbeat. Now they start age 12 plus D4. They start young, but they're bigger than everyone else. So you're going to be playing a fatalistic, dour, naive character because they're so much younger than everyone else. They're big guys. That could be fun. So from a role-playing aspect, I like it. From a DM's aspect, I don't think it's really needed at all. But there are players who want to play something bigger than the other characters. They want to be physically larger. And it's a fantasy game. We can make up all kinds of classes and races. I think the class assortment's just right for an AD&D light clone. I'm coming to realize this is not a BX nor an AD&D clone. It's something different. It's like a hybrid. And I like it. I'm liking it so far. There's a few features I'm not too thrilled about, but as a DM, I can use them. Nothing that turns me off to the point I won't run it, right? But I like the concept. I don't like that they're extra planar. It's combining these film aspects, I believe. Slave race from another area. Can't drink alcohol. It'll kill them. But they drink the curdled milk. So the dairy farmer turns into your local brewer, I guess. But I think people should play up the naivety plus fatalism. And that would be a nice, interesting role-playing aspect. And a lot of the stuff I'm noticing in here links towards role-playing, which we've gotten away from in a lot, because I'm talking about mechanics. But I see the mechanics reinforce the role-playing aspects. I like that. Some people need a nudge, or they won't do it at all. Throwing this out here, I might get all these races done before I walk down the street. It's going to be 90 degrees. Probably should get an early start of the day. I don't like the heat. And then later, I might make a video or a live stream where I'm sitting in front of the fire tonight. I'm thinking I might do that. Depending on how my Wi-Fi is in the backyard. But anyway, enough of that. I went over the Cyclopsman. I'm 50-50 on it. I'm allowing it in my game because it's part of the core rules. And we're doing full core before I this game would have to run its course before I applied a bunch of my home rules from the get-go. We're going to focus more on rules and then the rulings as needed. And the Cyclopskin doesn't need any modifications. It's probably bordering the half-elf on outsider status. It's not bad. It's not great. It provides a role-playing challenge, which is always a positive. But anyway, more to follow.